Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In our last video, we have covered 25 Azure AZ900 practice questions, and in this video, we are going to cover the remaining practice questions. Let's start. Before going into the questions, please subscribe to my channel for more videos. An administrator needs to view the list of planned maintenance events that could potentially affect the availability of the resources hosted in an Azure subscription. Which of the following blade in the Azure portal should the administrator consider for this requirement? It's help plus support. Help and support, you can go to service health to see the health of various services in Azure. Your team needs to have an integrated solution in place that can be used for the deployment of the code. Which of the following service can be used for this purpose? We can use Azure DevOps. With Azure DevOps, you can manage the core aspects of the lifecycle of the application development and deployment. You can implement continuous integration and deployment for your applications. You have just set up a new Azure account and are currently using a new Azure subscription. Your team has deployed a number of resources to Azure, such as Azure Virtual Machines, Azure Storage Accounts. Your team needs a tool that can provide guidance and recommendations that can be used to improve the security of your current Azure environment. Which of the following service can be used for this purpose? We can use Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor tool can be used to provide recommendations for your Azure environment from different fronts such as security and cost. Your team has been given the responsibility to build an artificial intelligence based application. This application would be deployed onto Azure. The application would also need to make use of Azure based services during the development phase. Which of the following could be used to fast track the development of the application? We can use Azure Cognitive Services. Azure Cognitive Services is a collection of SDKs and APIs that can be used to develop applications with artificial intelligence capabilities without the developer needing to have the knowledge on the underlying implementation. This can help the development team build the application in a faster manner, as they would not need to build the required artificial intelligence modules, but instead use those are already available in cognitive services. Your team needs to have a tool that can be used to monitor web applications deployed to Azure. Which of the following service can be used for this purpose? We can use Azure Application Insights. This is because Azure Application Insights can be used to monitor web applications on different platforms. This tool can be used to diagnose issues that can occur within your web-based applications. A team currently has several computers in their on-premise environment that runs on a Windows 10. They need to share files by enabling mapped drives from the computers. Which of the following would be an ideal storage solution for this requirement? We can use Azure Storage File Service. You can use File Service to create file shares. File shares can be mapped as network drives from the Windows 10 machines. A company wants to have a data hosted in Azure. Below are the key requirements for the data store. The data store must be able to store JSON documents. The data store must be able to handle data writes from multiple regions. Which of the following would be the ideal data store for this requirement? We can use Azure Cosmos DB. The SQL API available with the Cosmos DB can be used to store JSON-based documents. Cosmos DB also has the ability to accept multiple writes from different regions. A team is planning on deploying Azure Virtual Machines to a resource group named Demo Group. The group has been created in the US Central region. Do the virtual machines deployed to the resource group also need to be deployed to the US virtual region only? No, because the region of the resources in the resource group are not dependent on the region defined for the resource group. The resources can be in a different region from the region defined for the resource group. A team is planning on assigning tags to a resource group. Would the tags be inherited by resources in the resource group? No. It's because the resources in the resource group would not automatically inherit the tags defined at the resource group level. A set of IAM permissions have been assigned to a resource group. Would the resources in the resource group automatically inherit the IAM permissions assigned to the resource group? Yes. So because the IAM permissions defined at the resource group level would be inherited by the resources defined in that resource group. Which of the following service can be used to build, test, and deploy a predictive analytics solutions that could subsequently be used to deploy an artificial intelligence solution to Azure? It is Azure Machine Learning Studio. Azure Machine Learning Studio is a collaborative drag and drop tool you can use to build, test, and deploy predictive analytics solution on your data. Your team is planning on using the Azure Advisor tool. Would the Azure Advisor tool give recommendations on how to configure network settings for Azure virtual machines? No, because the Azure Advisor tool would not provide recommendations on the network settings. Your team is planning on using Azure Advisor tool. Would the Azure Advisor tool give recommendations on how to save cost when it comes to hosting virtual machines in Azure? Yes, because this tool can provide recommendations on whether to use reserved pricing for virtual machines, which could be used to reduce the overall cost for hosting virtual machines over a long period of time. Your team is planning on using the Azure Advisor tool. Would the Azure Advisor tool give recommendations on how to improve the security for Azure Active Directory? Yes, this tool provides security recommendations for Azure AD. It internally uses the Azure Security Center tool to provide these recommendations. A support engineer currently has a computer that runs Windows 10. Which of the following Azure management tools could be run from this computer? Choose all that apply. Options are all three: Azure CLI command line interface, Azure PowerShell, Azure Portal. All of these three tools could be run from a computer that is Windows 10 computer, running Windows 10 computer. A support engineer currently has a computer that runs Ubuntu. Which of the following Azure management tools could be run from this computer? That is Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, Azure Portal. You can download and install the Azure command line interface or Linux-based operating systems. You can also install the PowerShell on Linux-based operating system. Just set up an Azure account and Azure Active Directory. They need to ensure that when users connect to Azure AD from internet from an anonymous IP address, they are prompted to change their password automatically. Which of the following Azure service can help them to achieve this requirement? We can use Azure AD Identity Protection Service to achieve this requirement. In Azure AD Identity Protection, you can create a user sign-in risk policy. This policy can be used to ensure that users' logins that fall under a particular risk category then have to change their password. The company is planning on creating several virtual machines that will be used to host web and database servers. You need to limit the type of connections from the web and database servers. Which of the following can be used to fulfill this requirement? It's network security groups. You can use network security groups to allow and restrict traffic into and out of the virtual machines. Which of the following can be used to allow an organization to manage the compliance of resources across multiple subscriptions? You can use management groups. You can club subscriptions into management groups. This allows you to manage the compliance of resources across multiple subscriptions. Your team has just created a resource group and deployed a set of resources to the resource group. Which of the following can be used to prevent the deletion of resources from within the resource group? We can use log service. You can use logs to prevent the deletion of resources from within a resource group. Your company is planning on setting an Azure environment by setting up a subscription and an Azure AD tenant. They need to purchase a low-cost option support plan. The support plan needs to ensure 24/7 access to technical support by phone or email. You suggest an option for the basic support plan. Does this support the requirement? No. So because the basic plan doesn't provide access to technical support. Your company is planning on setting an Azure environment by setting up a subscription and an Azure AD tenant. They need to purchase a low-cost option support plan. The support plan needs to ensure 24/7 access to support engineers by phone or email. You suggest option for the developer support plan. Does this support the requirement? No. This plan only provides the support during the business hours. Your company is planning on setting an Azure environment by setting up a subscription and an Azure AD tenant. They need to purchase a low-cost option support plan. The support plan needs to ensure 24/7 access to support engineers by phone or an email. You suggest an option for the standard support plan. Does this support the requirement? Yes. This plan would provide the requirement 24/7 to the support. Does Microsoft release most of the Azure services in private preview before being introduced in public preview? No. This does not have to be case for each service. It depends on what type of feedback Microsoft wants to get back for a particular service. Is it true that Azure services released in public preview can only be managed via Azure command line interface? No. This is not always the case. An Azure service released in public preview can also be accessed via the Azure portal. In this video, we have covered 25 to 50 questions and answers along with the explanation.
If you practice my practice questions, it will be easy for you to clear this Azure 900 Azure examination. So we'll be covering the remaining questions in the next video. I would strongly suggest you to go ahead and watch and practice my next practice questions. So that will be very helpful for you to clear these examinations very easily. If you think my questions are going to help you in your examination, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give your feedback.